Great tech teams are built one hire at a time. You know exactly what you're looking for. But finding the right person, that's a full-time job on top of your actual one. With OfferZen Embedded, a dedicated talent partner joins your team to run hiring from outreach to offer. So you stay in the loop and out of the admin. All backed by 9 years of experience and over 8,000 successful tech hires. OfferZen Embedded. Let's grow your tech team together.
Hey everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. So we're going to be presenting a Dev Hiring Masterclass where we'll be talking about what top talent actually wants. So I'm Josh, I'm OfferZen's Data Content Manager, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. So before we dive in, just a couple of rules of engagement just to keep things running smoothly. So if you've got questions, feel free to drop them in the questions tab on the right of your screen, and we'll try to cover as many as we can. And we will be recording the session, which means you'll get the full replay sent straight to your inbox afterwards. And the chat tab is open. So please feel free to say hi, share your thoughts, and keep it spicy throughout the session. Definitely keeps things interesting, and it's always a nice way to start a good-natured discussion. So just want to kick things off with a quick hello in the chat. If you could tell us where you're joining from today. Oh, nice. Hey, we've got our first person in from Waiting in Cape Town. Hey, and another Joburger. Nice to see someone else from the City of Gold here. Cape Town, not of Cape Town. Ah, one Free State, nice. That, I mean, if you think Cape Town's cold, I do not envy anyone in the Free State right now. Cool beans. So thanks everyone. It's awesome to see everyone jumping in, and yeah, welcome to those of you who are just joining. In case you missed it, my name's Josh, and I'll be moderating the session today. So before we dig in, I just want to give everyone a quick introduction to OfferZen. So we are a tech talent marketplace that started out in Cape Town back in 2016. So we help companies not just hire, but we want to help them hire smarter. So that means being able to connect with top talent directly through our curated marketplace, or taking up our new offering, which we're calling OfferZen Embedded. Embedded essentially gives you a dedicated talent partner. It's like having an expert from our team sits on yours. They'll handle everything for you from sourcing and screening to background checks with the speed and expertise that we're known for. It's flexible, fast, and it was built for busy teams who need some hands-on support finding and hiring the best talent out there. So if you're interested, just hit the poll that'll pop up on your screen now, and we'd love to chat to you a little bit more after the session. Cool beans. And we're not just going to be helping you hire smarter, we also host a lot more events like this over the next few weeks. So we'll be covering everything from leadership lessons to hackathons. So if you'd like to join any, or preferably all of them, just select from the poll that you're going to see on your screen now. All right, thanks. That's all the admin covered. So now it's time to bring our speakers onto the stage and actually dive into the data. I'm very excited. So we can talk to you about what top talent actually wants. So just to recap, I'm Josh, I'm OfferZen's Data Content Manager, and I'm joined today by Grant and Yolandi. So Yolandi, maybe you can kick us off, just give us your name, your role, and one thing you think top talent actually wants right now.
Amazing, thanks Josh. Hi everyone, my name is Yolandi. I am an account manager at OfferZen. My main goal is to help companies on our marketplace succeed at scaling their tech teams. One thing I believe that tech talent really wants is meaningful impact. It's not just about the salary or the fancy title. Sure, those are certainly factors, but it's about genuinely contributing to something significant, seeing their work translate into tangible results, and knowing that their skills are being leveraged to solve important problems and build brilliant solutions.
Awesome, thank you. Grant, over to you. Same thing, your name, your role, and one thing you think top talent actually wants.
Thank you. My name is Grant. I'm a talent advisor, so it's now the candidate side of the operation. And my main goal is to help candidates put their best foot forward, present themselves well to hopefully land the perfect role on our platform, the perfect role being the perfect company. And there's obviously a lot that tech talent wants, and we'll be covering a lot of that today. But one thing I think I can point out is that tech talent loves to be seen. If you can show that you've really looked at their profile, their expertise, and what they have to offer before first meeting with them, that's the surest way to show you have high intent and more likely to get them to buy into your company culture from the first step on. So I think, yeah, read those profiles and allow them to feel seen is probably what I would narrow it down to.
Nice. I love that. I think we all want to be seen, especially in the job hunt. It's a lot of work. Cool. So without further ado, let's talk about what we're going to be covering today. So today we're going to be covering 3 themes: AI and why you need to evolve your assessment strategies in light of it, why career growth is now about showing someone a path and not just a role, and lastly, what flexibility means in 2025 and why you should see it as a standard and not a luxury. So just to note, these insights are part of our latest SA Tech team scaling playbook. So if you'd like to check that out and maybe explore any of the other data that's in the report, my colleague Alex is going to drop a link in the chat now. And if you have any questions on that we're not covering today, please feel free to reach out after the session. LinkedIn, always happy to answer any questions you might have. Cool. So without further ado, let's dive into the data. I think that's why we're all here. Nice. So the first theme is going to really be around AI. It's the obvious one. It's here. Most devs are already using coding assistants and AI tools daily, but hiring hasn't really caught up. So from the last report, we saw that only 1 in 5 devs say they've been allowed to use an AI tool during an interview. At the same time, 43% are still doing these old school coding tests. That means no AI, no collaboration, just solo problem solving, and not necessarily on the kind of problems you're going to encounter in the real world or on your job. So when we say we want devs who can work smartest with AI, but we're not assessing for it, this is a problem. So I want to talk a little bit about how we can fix that. So I think Yolandi, to kick us off, now that AI is a part of like the day-to-day workflow, but assessments aren't keeping up, how can companies go about like assessing technical skills in hiring in light of these developments?
Yeah, I think the first and most important action for companies to take here is to embrace AI. So when it comes to interviewing tech talent, especially at tech assessment stage, it's all about adapting on how to evaluate a tech assessment to ensure that there's fairness, relevancy, and real-world applicability. Trying to ban AI is unrealistic and counterproductive. Companies really need to shift their focus from can a developer write code to how did the developer use AI to assist them in writing code? Can the developer solve the problem efficiently and effectively using the best tools available? And that includes AI. In the real world, let's be honest, companies want smart, fast problem solvers. So embrace AI and adapt your screening or assessment process.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think it's interesting. It's not just like doesn't just look bad for the companies. It makes it hard for them to find that skill set. I think it also doesn't create a good look for companies when they're trying to stand out to candidates. So I think, Grant, like my question to you is then, if you're not allowed to use AI in an assessment, what message are you sending to candidates, and what are you seeing from developers who've had this experience?
Thank you. So yes, the first thing that I think this does show is it shows that you're using outdated assessment practices, and candidates see that as a bit of a red flag in terms of growth. So it shows traditional evaluation methods and shows that there's a lack of alignment with modern software development trends. You're falling behind a little bit, and candidates don't like to fall behind. So that in turn then shows a lack of adaptability And this does also indicate or imply company culture issues. If you're rejecting AI, it might also indicate, there's a lack of prioritization for innovation within your company. And then this may make candidates question, the company's commitment to modern practices. And it's really important to show that we're willing to adapt and stay relevant in the market. And that really stands out to candidates.
Okay. I like that. And I think, especially when we come to talk about growth, that's going to be a big thing, especially because developers are growth obsessed. So, aside from company culture, what does good AI assisted coding look like in a candidate? And what should teams be looking out for, beyond just the final output, which we might have been prioritizing in like more traditional types of assessments?
So when, not if, a candidate uses AI to assist them with a company's interview process or tech assessment, companies, I think, really need to look beyond the output. So focus on testing their problem solving and critical thinking skills. Can they understand the complex problem? Can they figure out the right questions to ask the AI? And most important, can they critically evaluate the AI's output? Is it correct? Is it optimized? Does it bring the solution or solve the problem? Also testing their debugging and quality control skills. Can they actually debug code, even if parts of it were AI created? Can they identify security flaws or performance issues? This really tests their understanding, not just their coding skills. And then also testing their communication skills. Can they explain, post the tech assessment, their solution, their choices, and how they used AI? This is vital for team collab. Companies need to move away from just testing pure memorization to rather assessing judgment, efficiency, and the ability to leverage powerful tools. This gives companies also a much more realistic view of how a developer will perform in their environment.
No, I love that. And I think especially things like soft skills are kind of like the differentiator in today's market. And I mean, those are also things that are really hard to bring across in an interview especially when you're feeling nervous. It is a very stressful process. So, how can formats like code walkthroughs or pair programming, which seem to becoming more popular in, light of like AI's rise, how do these give a clearer picture of a candidate's like real world thinking and communication, and maybe allow someone to like put their best foot forward? So, you're getting the best idea of what someone can actually do on the job.
Yeah, I think the pair programming sessions speak to a lot of the points that Yolandi raised and actually helps hit those points. So the one thing is it allows you to see collaborative interaction. So you are testing this candidate with someone else in the room who could possibly be a colleague in the future, and you're seeing how they work with them. It's a bit more of a real world dynamic you're seeing, and you're seeing their adaptability and their communication skills. As Yolandi said, this also allows you to see, their methods for debugging, insights into their coding standards, and things you wouldn't see if you're just looking at the result. So I think pair programming sessions really help highlight those skills, communication skills as well. They're verbalizing their thinking, and it shows how they'll work within the company and communicate with company members. And another really important one, I think, is adaptability to feedback. So when you're in the session, in a live pair programming session, then when you're giving live feedback to candidates, you see how they take it. Do they get offended, or do they take it, make action, and work on it from there? And then this gives you a really good idea as to how they'll work within your company as well, which traditional testing methods don't really allow you to test that. So yeah, this holistic approach gives a much better idea of how the candidate will work within your team.
And then I think just like to round it off, because I think that we're covering like some really good stuff. And one of the takeaways for me is it's not just about like adapting the tool you use. It's really the mindset that you use to approach testing and figuring out if someone's a good holistic fit. So how then do you like balance fairness and realism when you're testing not just how someone uses AI to solve problems, but the whole use of AI within the testing space?
I think not allowing AI in assessments is unrealistic, and I think it will penalize efficiency and it will hide critical thinking. It will also perhaps create a negative candidate experience by making your company seem outdated. And it's also nearly impossible to enforce fairly. It will ultimately cause you to miss out on top talent. So I think companies can balance fairness and realism by allowing AI in assessments, whilst also then focusing on their critical thinking, their problem-solving skills, and a candidate's ability to evaluate and explain AI-generated solutions rather than just the final code.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if there's anything you want to add on to that based on what you're seeing with candidates.
I think it's pretty much hit the nail on the head what Yolandi said. It covers all those points. I mean, we just need to acknowledge AI as the new standard, and move on from there.
Yeah, so I think just like to recap then, like some of my takeaways here is it's AI, and whether or not you use it or not reflects not just your company's like approach to, let's say, modern dev standards, but does have like red or green flags for growth, which I think is going to be an interesting seg into our next theme, which is, you know, career growth and really showing developers not just a path, not just a role, but a clear pathway. Just go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So I think something I feel like it's always important to be honest about is developers aren't just job hunting, they're growth hunting. In my like chats with people at events and like community meetups, I feel developers have a lot more in common with like artisans and craftspeople. Like this isn't just a job, it's a craft they really are passionate and take seriously. So if they're not growing somewhere, that's a major issue, and they are going to look for growth somewhere else. Unfortunately, their career growth confidence is at a 4-year low. So in the graph that you're seeing now, we're looking at whether or not developers feel they can continue growing at their current company. Now, this peaked in 2023, which was the height of the hottest ever hiring market, and it's slowly come down since then. For the first time, it's sitting at under 65%. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's still quite a high number, but for such a growth-obsessed group, it's very scary to see, you know, this number not being 80, 90%. So companies really need to take this seriously, because it's not just a major retention risk, it's also going to make it hard to, you know, stand out and attract the best people. And, you know, it's not enough to say, you know, we've got cool projects or you'll grow here. Every company says that, even in the very bad job descriptions. So it seems like talent now wants to see a path, and that's things like, where can this role take me? Who's walked it before? Did they succeed? And I think the most important one to me, at least, is why should I choose you and not someone else? Because if you're not answering that, someone else will. So I want to talk a little bit about like how, you know, companies can make that growth feel real and not just a bullet point. So I think, Yolandi, maybe to kick us off, what are companies currently getting wrong about like devs' career growth opportunities?
Yeah, I think companies are often failing to provide a holistic growth environment. So this will include clear, diverse career paths, continuous learning and skills development opportunities, meaningful work with autonomy and impact, frequent constructive feedback and recognition, and then also the sustainable work-life balance that will prevent burnout. I think addressing these crucial topics for boosting a developer's confidence and retaining top tech talent is very important.
And then I think on the flip side of that is it's not just like what companies can do, but, you know, saying that you offer growth and then meaningfully showcasing it can feel like different things for candidates. Like, what are they currently looking for when they're assessing companies to make sure that these things are in place and that they're real?
Thank you. So as Yolandi mentioned, they are looking for clear career pathways and not just talks about growth, an actual very clear structure of what they can expect growth-wise in the next couple of years, timelines, milestones, promotions, and, you know, skill advancement. They want a very clear picture of what they can achieve by when, and they're looking for this in the interview stage, not when they're already hired. So this is really good to show from the start. This is also includes mentorship opportunities. candidates love being placed at a company where they've got other smart people in their team. They can learn niche skills from them, maybe branch into data or something else that they haven't really traditionally done. So having those opportunities is something they often look for. And one way you could show this is also showcasing success stories. So if you have someone in your company who has grown quite a bit within the company, showcase it, show it to them, and show that there's a real case scenario where you can grow and be successful within the company. And yeah, I think open communication and open, honest communication about the growth trajectories. Don't promise growth if you've got a team of 10 devs and there's only one manager position open for them to grow into. You need to have a really clear expectation of where can they grow, how can they grow, and timelines like that. And honesty is key in that process, in my opinion. Concrete evidence and honesty.
Definitely. And then I think just, that's what candidates are looking for. But as a company, how do you demonstrate these in a hiring process, especially, when you're trying to find culture fit while still trying to sell the company? Yolandi, I'm not sure if you have anything you can add there.
Yeah, I think to win top talent, like Ron just said, companies must demonstrate, not just claim growth potential. And it needs to be done in a meaningful, transparent way. So map out clear career pathways. So share real examples of candidates progressing within your company, or provide a visible framework for leveling, promotion, skills development. I also think regular salary reviews. Make use of OfferZen's salary reports, our annual State of the Developer Nation report, to measure your company's dev salaries versus what's going on in the market. And then be transparent about the growth timeline. So outline what success could look like in 3, 6, or 12 months, and give candidates a roadmap of how their role could evolve if they perform. And then I think also make learning tangible. Offer a budget for upskilling, include mentorship programs or regular growth conversations. And then lastly, I think very important, build growth into your pitch. So during the interview, don't just sell the now, but also paint a clear picture of the next. Help the candidate to imagine how your company will grow with them, not just to use them to solve a current problem.
No, I love that. And I think that leads us right back into the data. So if we just go to the next slide, selling, or bringing growth into your pitch, the data, what you're seeing on the screen here, this graph is developers' top factors for career growth. And the growth that they're obviously looking for things like company culture, challenging projects. But something I just want to highlight that's a little bit different is organizational stability. So this is something we included for the first time this year, and it's already a top factor for just under 1 in 4 devs. And I think it's only something that's going to grow in importance over the next 12 months, especially given, some of the challenges we've had in the tech space over the past 2 years. So I think this is something to pay attention to. And I just want to highlight something as well, is this isn't something that only matters to people at bigger companies. So you might be thinking at a startup, organizational stability doesn't exist. But if we go to the next graph, what's quite interesting to me, at least, is it still matters to developers. Basically, across the board, people care about this. The trick is what stability looks like. So at an enterprise company, that might be what you were saying, Yolandi, around that clear pathway, maybe a higher budget or something like that. But I imagine, at a startup, it's who are your founders? Do you trust them? Do you have funding, or does your company have a clear pathway to profitability? So I think, I don't want to get too bogged down in the details here, but I just wanted to highlight that as something to pay attention to. And then I think my question then is, how are we seeing stability play out into a developer's decision to commit long-term to a company? Yolandi, I don't know if you want to kick us off, maybe?
Sure. I mean, stability for developers isn't just about job security. It underpins the ability to offer meaningful growth, a positive work environment, and a clear future. Just to also recap on the SMEs or startups, they can attract and retain top talent by focusing on meaningful impact and ownership. So direct contribution, high autonomy, solving unique problems, and then also fostering a culture of continuous learning and growth. So their exposure to diverse tech, direct mentorship, and investing in skills development like online courses, this all will contribute.
Then, Grant, so is there anything you're seeing from like the candidate side in terms of how they're thinking about committing long term?
Yes, absolutely. So everything Yolandi said and more. So confidence in job security is obviously very, very important. If you can show a track record of success, then you're already putting yourself in a good position. And then investment in employee growth and development shows that you're not just surviving, but you're thriving as a company, and you're putting money and effort into actually growing the developers. So that's always a green flag for long-term stability. And one other thing is if you can align your career path with the candidate's personal goals as well. If you have a very clear growth trajectory for the company, the candidate can very easily slot themselves into that and see where they can see themselves within the company in 5 years. And that way they're far more likely to commit to the company long term because their success trajectory is tied to the company's success trajectory. So that and just staying on top of tech trends so candidates don't feel like they're losing relevance in the tech space and constantly on new tools.
That makes a lot of sense. I think just for me then, like organizational stability sometimes feels like a bit of a taboo topic to talk about, especially in the current like macro. So, what are some ways that you can, highlight these things or talk about stability without, overwhelming candidates or potentially coming across as a little bit suspect? I think, that's going to be key to landing just the right level.
Yeah, some ways in which companies can highlight stability is highlight leadership and vision. So talk about your founders or execs track records. Clearly communicate your long-term vision and roadmap, showing how this role fits into it. I also think show evidence of strategic hiring. Let candidates know you're hiring intentionally, not just filling a seat. Share why the specific role that the candidate is interviewing for is a priority and how it drives the business forward. And then mention retention. If you have long-standing team members, bring that up. Mention low employee turnover rates to reinforce that people also stay for a reason.
And then I think maybe like it's a bit of an elephant in the room, but like just to maybe talk about retrenchments and, how to bring that up in a conversation. Because, tech, we are a very small community and word does travel. So if you've had to take that unfortunate step and you're now hiring again, what are some suggestions you might have for like handling that conversation with candidates?
Yeah, I believe it's how you talk about it that matters. So acknowledge the restructuring and be factual about it. Explain the strategic thinking, the actions. So examples here could be market shifts, alignment with core priorities, and long-term sustainability. Emphasize lessons learned and highlight your current financial health. So saying we learned valuable lessons that shaped how we operate today. Explain that the current hiring is for strategic growth. And then I think lastly, articulate vision and culture. It's important to present a future vision and how their role will contribute to it.
No, thank you. Yeah, I just think it's one of those things that, especially because it's so taboo, it's always helpful to like have a couple of like ways to bring that up. And then I think, from the candidate side of things, Grant, what are some of the things you're seeing, especially amongst like senior candidates? What are they looking for to feel confident that, a company isn't just surviving, but building with real intent?
Yeah, thanks. I think, as mentioned before, the clear company vision is super important because they can buy into it if they can really see what the company plans to do in the next couple of years, and reiterating that the company is planning for growth and not just surviving or trying to make a profit where they are, but there's actual growth plans in the future. And then along with everything that's been mentioned before, investment in employee development, showing financial stability. If you have the stats to show it to the candidates as well, show that you've got funding or what your pathway is. And if you've got a high employee retention rate, show those numbers. Candidates really take that into account. And if you've got a high retention rate, they will commit to you even if there are other red flags. And if you have a low retention rate, and everything else seems perfect, they may not commit to you. So I think high employee retention rates is really great. If you have those stats and they are looking good, share them for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think that kind of like wraps up, this theme. So I think a couple of like key takeaways for me is stability is becoming really important, and what that can take a bunch of different formats, but it can be things like, if you're really good at retaining people, that's a great selling point. Build the growth into your pitch, and don't shy away from those awkward conversations, especially if you've had to go through something like a restructure. So I think this is a nice way to bring us into our third theme, which is also going to be around not just retaining people, but really attracting them, is flexibility. So flexibility, I like to think about, is not a perk anymore. It's become a baseline. And especially as more developers are being called back to the offices, it's making them think twice about the next move. And in fact, for 2 years now in a row, flexibility has been the number one reason why candidates will turn down a role, followed by lack of growth opportunities. So it's definitely something you need to get right. And in fact, you need to get both of these things right. Now, I think sometimes when we're talking about things like flexibility, it's very easy to, reduce it to offering remote work. But, I don't think that's necessarily the case. Like, I've had great conversations recently with people at like DevConf, where someone works a fully remote role, but they have a hard clock in and clock out time. Their activities tracked throughout the day. They basically have no flexibility. But on the flip side, I've spoken to people who are fully in office, and they say they have great flexibility. Their company trusts and respects them. So I think it's important, we don't just assume it's one or the other. And now that brings me, I think, to the importance of this is, it's not enough to just say, can we offer flexibility, but figuring out what does flexibility actually look like for my team. So maybe let's explore that a little bit more in how to answer that question for candidates in a way that attracts them and not repels them. So I think, Grant, like, based on what you're seeing in your conversations recently, what does flexibility actually look like to developers in 2025?
Yes, thank you. That's a really good point about remote not necessarily meaning flexibility, because if you're on 24-hour support call but you work from home, it's not really flexible. So what candidates are really looking for is a culture of trust and autonomy, that they're trusted to do their job, and a focus on results rather than activity and time online. And once you focus on those things, candidates feel a little bit less micromanaged, and they also more motivated to work. And one of the ways you can show flexibility is flexible hours. I mean, sometimes people want to drop off their kids in the afternoon, take an hour off here or there to go and do something really important. And if they have the flexibility to catch up on that work later, and still drive results, we've also got peak productivity hours. Some people may be really productive at 10 o'clock at night, and if they can leave some of their work till those hours and really dive into the challenging tasks that they have, that's also a form of flexibility, rather than being forced to do it in an 8-hour block, and focus on work-life balance. You understand that these are people with lives outside of work, and if you make it very clear within your company that you understand that and support that, that's very attractive to candidates. That's flexibility.
So I think, this kind of is a nice way, a nice takeaway, I think, especially if you're a company with like a fixed fixed work policy, either fully in office or like a set number of days hybrid. There's some good news here. I think my question then, Yolandi, is what are some smart ways that these companies can stay competitive with top talent, like based on what Grant said and what the data is showing us?
Yeah, I believe candidates are open to fixed models if they understand the purpose and the benefits thereof. So I think it's important for companies to make the why clear. So be transparent about why the policy exists. So is it for collab, mentorship, security? With a fixed model, offer flexibility then in other ways. So a flexible start and end time, extra leave or wellness days, no meeting days. I think be honest in hiring conversations. So don't sugarcoat your policy. Instead, own it confidently and then shift the focus to what candidates gain in return and how the model supports their long-term success.
And then I think going beyond that, like what can companies do to go beyond work and offer other forms of flexibility to support their team members, like lifestyles and priorities?
I think it's about recognizing that a one-size-fits-all approach no longer works, and that autonomy over when and how work gets done is valuable, more valuable actually, as to where it gets done. So sometimes, or something like a compressed work week for 4-day work week or 980 schedule, work 80 hours over 9 days and get every other Friday off. This provides a long weekend every 2 weeks. So that's just an example. Offering flexible leave policies and time off, focusing on generous, unlimited leave with encouragement to use it. Or specific leave for life events. I think that could work.
Definitely. And I especially like what you're saying, like the one size fits all just like doesn't work. And I think especially for developers as well, the assumption that everyone wants this remote or the same thing is just not the case. So I think based on that, like how can companies like clearly define and communicate like their version of flexibility, especially so that when developers are applying or they're reaching out to developers, expectations are aligned from the start and you're making sure that you're as attractive as possible to the right people?
I think it's crucial for companies to understand the difference between saying they're flexible and truly being flexible. Performative flexibility often creates more stress than the traditional setup. So while flexibility empowers employees, I think it's also important to look at red and green flags here. The red flags, the always on culture, the micromanagement, the career stagnation for flexible workers, and then green flags, rather focusing there, is leadership, embracing and modeling the flexibility, clear and diverse growth paths for all, as an example.
And then from the candidate side, like what are some things that companies can do just to make sure that there aren't like any miscommunications or like misalignment in understanding like a company's version of flexibility?
Thank you there. I think if you can develop a clear flexibility policy, so it's not just talk of flexibility and ideas that people implement, it's rather an actual policy you've put together that candidates can, or employees rather, can access and refer to, then there isn't any gray area about what you can and can't do in work hours. So a clear flexibility policy, communicate this early on in the job description before people even sign up, is really, really important. And you can also highlight examples of flexibility in action. So real life examples or testimonials of people within the company who may have a unique situation where they need flexibility in working hours. And you can showcase this to show that your company does take this into consideration. And the one thing you can do to make sure the work is still getting done is, with the flexibility policy, also develop very clear performance metrics and show that what output is expected. So even if you are being more flexible with those hours, what is expected of this person, so that they can still make sure they're hitting those marks.
Mm.
And then I think adding on to that, how can someone make sure that this is like a genuine thing? So they see this in a job advert. How can they make sure like this is actually what a company's saying, or assessing whether or not this would actually work for them? Do you have any thoughts or anything you could maybe add there, Grant?
Yes, I think there's very clear red flags and green flags with this, because a lot of people advertise flexibility and it's not always in action. It's not really always as it is advertised. So red flags is lack of transparency. If you talk about flexibility but don't have that clear policy, that's a very clear red flag. Inconsistent application across teams. If you have certain teams that have flexible hours and other teams that don't, that can also create a bit of unsurety with employees. And then if there's focus on presence and being online constantly rather than focus on the result, that's another very clear red flag that it's all talk and not really the flexibility is not really in action. But some of the green flags would be if you have a cultural emphasis on trust, cultural emphasis on trust and autonomy, and as mentioned before, the performance-driven evaluation is also really, really important. And how do candidates spot the difference between these two things? They often look, research and reviews, Glassdoor. Candidates love Glassdoor to go and have a look and see, there's companies talking about flexibility, but online people are saying that this is not how it actually works in action. So candidates do look for this. They do look around. They ask around. The developer community it's a large community, but they're tightly knit. So word gets around and they do talk. So they can observe the company communication as well. Do we openly discuss flexibility in the recruitment materials, or is it something that just comes up in passing? So these are all things that candidates look for.
So I think then, just to make sure I understand, move away from this one size fits all, be transparent about that version of flexibility, and really communicate just what that looks like. I especially like your example of if you have a particular team member who needs a specific version of flexibility for whatever reason, bringing that up as a really concrete way of showing people your commitment to taking this seriously. So we've got a couple of questions from the audience. The first one, I think, ties in quite nicely around from Christian. Are employee requirements really compatible with the economic pressures in South Africa at this time? Or are they imposing international demands on a market with very different economic capabilities? I'm not sure if anyone has an answer there.
Gosh, I'm not really sure how to answer that one.
Something I can maybe just add from what I'm seeing in the data, and then we can maybe do an async answer for you, Christian, is I think by virtue of how international software development is becoming, people will see what's going on in the Stack Overflow data and what people are getting. And that starts to shift their perspective about what's something they can ask for here. So I think it can be compatible for some companies, especially for the companies who can offer it, but it depends. Maybe this is something we should have a little bit of more of a think about, and then we can reach out to you afterwards.
Yeah.
And then for Yolandi, Sonia asks, with a background in customer service, a BA from the University of the Western Cape, and a software engineering course in progress, what's your advice for breaking into tech recruitment and standing out to hiring teams?
Okay, so if the skills and experience isn't tech heavy at this point in time, and you have sort of shift careers from one to tech, I think is just making sure that you put yourself out there in terms of transferable skills, and then being open to learning. So maybe starting an internship or a contract, or something a little bit more flexible, where you can actually then show a company what you're capable of, and also just that eagerness to learn, to grow, and to develop your tech skills further. I think that I would recommend.
And then we've got a question from Christelle, I think, going back to the AI topic. She says, I've had a few interviews with candidates who are actually seeking new roles as they are finding that their companies are being too aggressive with AI adoption and aren't finding sufficient development opportunities. They found the concerns interesting. They would like our view on this. I don't know if that's something either of you have had much experience with lately.
Gosh, I haven't had talent developers push back on AI. I found companies to be more afraid of using AI. I've had a few companies also refer to candidates using AI in tech assessments as cheating. Fair enough. If AI wasn't allowed in the tech assessment, and they did, use AI, then that could be seen as cheating. But yeah, I haven't had actually much pushback from candidates. Candidates want to embrace the AI part of it all. Companies, I find, are a little bit still wary of it. But that's where it needs to be a thing of leaning into embracing it, and then adjusting.
Yeah, from my side there, I'm also quite surprised by that comment, because I haven't had many candidates mention something like that. So that is very new to me, and something we should probably consider going forward. But that's not something I've seen as a very common issue. Candidates are quite ready to embrace AI, and if you do embrace AI, you just simply raise the bar of what's expected from them. So you use AI and just perform at a higher level is what I say.
There's also, like, from chats with people that I'm with the two of you. One thing I did see someone comment on about LinkedIn a while back was, I think it comes down to like how their company is using it. So like in your case, like, if it's pushing the bar, that's what developers are excited about. But if it's this like constantly trying to like squeeze more out of a small team, that maybe might be a step too far. But I'm definitely curious to go and like see if we can get some data on this. That's something I'm now really keen to explore more. Then we got another question from Michelle. What independent technical skills platform do you recommend?
Nothing offhand, but I could probably have a look and get back after.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I think we should do that. I think I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. Oh, there's definitely one here. So Grant, it's from Bassi. Deferring work to outside of the work time frame. That might be a setback to the firm, but if you could elaborate on that a little bit further. They're not against flexibility in this regard, but it should be coding and engineering that is not needed in real time. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, I think mentioning the flexible work hours and things like that, that's only if it is feasible for your company. If it's not feasible for your company and it doesn't work, then we try and find flexibility in other ways. But when I mentioned flexibility with work hours, you could have core company hours where you still get your 8 hours a day, but maybe there's only 6 hours that are core hours where everyone needs to be online. And then people can log in early if they want, people can log off late, make a plan on how they catch up on those other hours. I think that is something you could do by still having core hours that your firm, when everyone's online and can help each other. But again, this is only something if it works for your company structure. If it doesn't, there's no point pushing for that if it complicates.
And then we've got one last question I think we've got time for. It's from Christian. How would you do technical interviews if you're looking for senior candidates for a new team, but you don't have strong technical in-house leadership presence?
Sure. So if you are looking to hire senior tech talent and you don't have seniors at the firm currently to be able to assess them, that is an interesting question. I actually wouldn't know how to even answer that question. I think you would then need to rather focus on how that individual will work and manage a team. So rather testing collab, rather testing, because obviously the person brings the seniority, they bring the experience, years of experience and skills, but then it would probably be a good idea to see how they would actually function within your organization, assuming that they would be leading a team or people would be working underneath them, how they would actually collab and work and maybe even mentor the developers that are in your company. I hope that answers your question.
maybe just something to add to that would be also considering like something like embedded. I think this is a good like use case there where, you know, someone with maybe a more experience of like hiring that can give the team a little bit like more support, and take over some of that heavy lifting that you might not be able to do internally. Yeah. I think that's all we have time for. So yeah, I think that's a wrap on today's Dev Hiring Masterclass. I know we've unpacked a lot, like from evolving your assessments in the face of AI, you know, making career growth tangible, and then redefining like what flexibility means in 2025. So I really hope that everyone's walking away with like some fresh insights and some practical ideas they can use to level up their hiring strategy. And just to let everyone know again, you will get the full recording landing in your inbox soon, so please keep an eye out for that. And yeah, I just want to say a huge thank you to both you and both Grant and Yolandi for sharing their experiences and sharp thinking today. And of course, everyone, a big thank you to everyone who showed up, asked great questions, kept us on our toes, and yeah, be part of the conversation. So if you're curious to learn more about like how OfferZen can help you hire smarter, whether that be through the marketplace or embedded, please feel free to reach out or connect with us after the session. And the same if you've got any questions like about the data or anything else you're seeing in the reports, always happy to help there. And yeah, that's it from us. Good luck out there, and hope to see you at the next event soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.